Sometimes you'll be surprised. You ask somebody his date of birth, and the year that he's telling you is different from what is on the document. I didn't write it for you. You wrote it. Your CV is you. When you come, whatever you have there, once it's you should be able to tell us about yourselves without looking into your CV.
So I see people dress to interviews like they are going to parties.
You cannot be going for an interview for a banking role and go wearing party dresses. I mean, you'll be walked out.
Okay.
So when she entered the interview room, immediately she was sacked.
They didn't even allow her.
No.
So the remuneration is not
for 3.
When you have like gaps in your CV, and they ask you, so what were you doing during this time? What happened?
Be yourself, be you, and say what it is.
Hello, welcome to the Big Changes podcast. I'm very excited that we are here again with another episode. Today, we are talking about bread and butter issues. So we are very wild here today. And then we are talking about unemployment. Okay. If you have not been unemployed before, you may not understand what it feels like to have finished university or even SHS or your diploma, and then you are home doing nothing, depending on your parents and all that. Sometimes your parents can hold the fort for you, but at a point you need to actually find a job. And there are things that we do that also hinders our success or hinders us from getting the jobs that we desire. So today we'll be talking about how to put yourself in a good place so that when you go for that interview, when you present your CV, when you speak about yourself, you will be able to convince that employer to give you the job. I would like to share a story. I always like sharing stories. My mom called me and told me that, a family friend of ours has gotten a job opportunity. So it wasn't like it was certain. So they asked me to send my CV. At that point, I think I had finished university, but I was home. So they asked me to send my CV. They didn't teach me how to write CV in university. It's not something that I was taught. So I was supposed to send it through the email. And what I did was I went to the email, I opened my Gmail, I opened the Compose, and I started typing name, Akosia Asare, age 22. This. I didn't have an idea of what to do, and I just sent it. And I didn't consult anybody. So my mom asked me, have you sent it? I was like, oh, I've sent it. And we're not hearing from them. So it was a media organization. So after like a week or two, because I had sent my CV, I had to be listening to the programs that they were doing in case they call you and they ask you questions. Can you imagine? They used my CV for a program actually, and not that they mentioned my name, but they were teaching about how to write CVs, and they were explaining that someone sent their CV and just typed it straight in Gmail and didn't do anything about it, and they use it to educate other people. And for me, I think that is very important that we learn some of these simple things that we can learn to help us get jobs easily. And to help me discuss that, I have Lady Reverend Patsy Sawyer. She's a very well experienced HR manager. I've known her for a long time, and she would help me do justice to this issue or topic. Thank you so much, Mami, for joining us today.
Thank you too.
Okay. So what I realized was, I don't know if it's a thing that is done now, but when I was in the university, we were not taught CV writing. I did BA English. I wasn't taught CV writing. I don't know even my other colleagues, but it wasn't something that we were taught. Maybe your final year, they'll do a career clinic and say CV writing, or it would be one of your in the courses. And I think that it is one thing that contributes to people not being hired, because your CV is what tells the employer about yourself. So if you don't know how to arrange it in the way that it is supposed to be, then it means that you are doing something wrong. And I want to find out, is there a standard for how a CV needs to look like?
Thank you so much for this opportunity. And I would say that maybe before I go into that, yes, CV is actually a document that tells a story about you.
Okay.
So depending on how sweet or nice you want the story to be, then you put it on.
Okay.
But also in writing it, it depends on the position that you're applying for. There are certain rules. If you go and write a whole story, I mean, they will just push your CV somewhere, so it's very important to know what you're applying for and what you are required to write about. Okay. Now, when it comes to writing of CVs, like I said, different rules have a requirement. Like when you are doing your PhD or something, or you want to apply to be a lecturer, they want to read a lot about you.
Yes.
So you cannot just bullet your points. Okay.
Yes.
It has to be a story that, as they are reading, they can tell, okay, this person knows how to teach, how to explain things here and there.
Okay.
And now, if you're also applying for, let's say,
entry-level
job, and those roles, we have thousands of applicants.
Yes.
So you cannot also just go and write stories, So those ones, they look for specifics, and it's very necessary your points are bulleted, So as you look at it, you can easily scan through. So most times when let's say entry level, you shouldn't write more than 2 pages,
Okay.
Yes. And then at the interview, you would explain yourself.
Okay.
But if you go write a whole lot, if you give this to those who do shortlisting, sometimes it's like they can't even find the information that you are trying to tell about yourself. So your document will just be pushed aside.
Okay.
So you need to know what I'm applying for and what are the requirements and then how to do it. Now, in your world, unlike ours, every time we didn't have the internet at our beck and call.
Yeah.
Those times we used to, maybe you ask somebody, have you written a CV before? How does it look like? Or you find samples in books, textbooks, etc.
Yes.
But now you have the internet at your fingertips. So you can always search and you find a sample of good CVs and then you write.
Okay.
If you don't, you are telling your employer that you are very lazy, because the employer can, even as he's sitting or she's sitting with you, go online and as you're talking, be looking at what you have written here and there, and they'll use that to assess you, so it's very important to be current with the information that you are so required to give. Yeah.
For somebody, let's say a person that is applying for an entry-level job and may not necessarily have had experience in any job, corporate job or anything like that, what exactly should the person, since he doesn't have any job experience, maybe apart from national service or anything, what should be inside on the CV for it to look a little attractive to the employer?
Okay, so for an entry level, like you rightly said, they're not really expected to have so much experience.
Okay.
But in this current world, though at entry level, people do a lot of things, even whilst in school.
Okay.
And sometimes we think that these things are not so important, so we don't add them to our CVs.
Okay.
But they are very important because it tells the interviewer or the employer that you are very creative, you have initiative. You are somebody who is ready to hit the ground running or, make it to the top.
Yeah.
So no matter at what level you are, any little experience that you have is very important to put in your CV. You don't have to write, I did this and that, but you just write the year you did that, which is very important, where you did that.
Okay.
And once you write that, let's say, a content studio, 2025.
Okay.
The employer will say, what did you do at content studio?
Okay.
Then it gives you the opportunity to tell the person that I did this and this and that.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So when in trying to explain that to the prospective employer, and maybe you have like gaps in your CV, maybe this last 2 years you worked at a studio, but maybe in 2024 you didn't do any work, and 2025 you are working at a different place. Okay. I'm talking about what you are saying. You can put in some little experience, maybe volunteering, anything, internship, even entrepreneur, like maybe you started your small business. How do you explain when you have like gaps in your CV and they ask you, so what were you doing during this time? What happened?
Yeah, definitely. Once there are gaps, those are the things that attract the employers or the interviewers. They want to know. So during this period, what did you do? So you should just be able to tell. If I did nothing, I tried doing something, I didn't get anything to do. You know, be honest. Tell them. If you were in school, maybe you had to go back to school, you were doing your thesis or you were writing your project, so you couldn't do anything. Just say it, you know. But you don't have to fake information because sometimes you say something and then you will probe further. Then you see the person, you know, either biting the fingernails or, you know, and immediately tells you that, no, this person is a... And these days too, I mean, information, it doesn't take much to get information. So sometimes when we are in doubt, fine, we have interviewed you, but we go and do background checks. And then at the end of the day, the truth comes out.
So you don't have to lie.
No.
You have to be truthful about it.
When it comes to your CV.
Okay. And also for experienced hires, if maybe at my former workplace, I was sacked. Not like I resigned. I did something and I was sacked. And now I'm looking for a new job. And I go to the interview. They ask me questions about my former employment, why I left there, why am I coming? What would you? Is it advisable to say that you were sacked? Because then it will let the HR be like, hey, if we employ you, are you going to be faithful to us?
So that becomes a tricky thing, right? Most people would not, especially when they are sacked, want to say they were sacked.
Okay.
But then you have to be, maybe you were doing the right thing, okay, and they are not. So because you want to protect your integrity, you insisted on the right thing, and it didn't sound too well with them. So that you have a point to bring out those facts. But where you went to misbehave, I'm sure you even be uncomfortable to disclose what you did.
Okay.
You know.
Yes.
And you should also know that once you're looking for a job, you'll be probed.
Yes.
So if I were you, before even the interview, I'll let them know what I did wrong. And if they are interested in recruiting, so those things you can even put it on your CV as, you know, maybe a PS or NB, you know, just something, a note at the base there, you know, saying that this happened, you know. Sometimes when we are young, we do certain things without thinking because we think we are hot cake, you know. I can leave here and I'll get another job here and there. So you put a note there and then they will know that, okay, based on that.
Okay.
That's how.
But I have like a little, I don't understand why sometimes when we apply for jobs and maybe we do not make it to the next round, we never hear anything from the employers.
Okay.
It's at least I want to know, is it that the application, maybe the applications were too many, so you cannot send anybody an email or call them to tell them that I didn't make the cut. But I believe that you should be able to at least tell the person that, oh, sorry, unfortunately we cannot move forward with you. Why do sometimes HR, we don't hear anything? It demoralizes the applicants, okay, and it makes them feel like they are doing something wrong. What accounts for that?
Okay, like I said, at certain levels, the applications are so many. Okay. And we always advise that when you apply for, okay, even sometimes the adverts, you put in a caveat that if you don't hear, then you were not shortlisted.
Okay. Yes.
So that clause is there.
Yes.
So if you don't hear anything within a certain period, then assume that you were not shortlisted.
Okay.
But if that caveat is not there, it's okay to also try and reach out to them.
Okay.
And we always advise that if that caveat is not there, especially at certain levels of position, you need to, if you don't shortlist the person, you need to let them know.
Okay.
The entry levels, you will not get that kind of information. But at the higher levels, sometimes, because especially if they write to you via email, you should be able to just respond, have those auto response to the CV has been received. When shortlisted, so you send a message here and there. Yeah.
And recently I was reading online and I noticed that now HR, human resource, so if they have like a lot of series and they ask you to send it through maybe your email, they have softwares that helps them pick out the important maybe skills that they need. So would you say if you're applying for a job and you may not necessarily have the experience that the job or what they are asking for in their job description, but then would you advise that a candidate, since they are going to run it through like a software or AI, would you advise that the candidates can put some keywords that they describe in their job description in their CV, so that at least the AI can pick it and can go for interview? And can go for the interview.
So where is the satisfaction? Is the satisfaction going for the interview and not being selected, or your CV is not picked? Which one would you prefer? Because it's dicey. Maybe somebody will be happy to just go for the interview, but then you go for the interview and then they realize, just by asking one or two questions, they realize, no, you're speaking with the wrong person.
Because I've seen like people say you can, because they use like the softwares and other to pull out
the
or
CVs,
yes, you should couch your CV in such a way that it has some of the keywords in the job description, so that when they pass it through the software, it highlights your CV.
I understand exactly what you're saying, but I'm saying, which one do you want? Do you want to assume that I qualify, I've been shortlisted, I go for the interview, and then at the interview, I end up looking so silly because I'm not the person they are looking for, even the kind of questions they are asking, though I've carved my CV to meet their need, but then the practicality of the interview proved that I'm the, what do you call it, the wrong person for the role, or not to be shortlisted, and then I look forward somewhere else. So it depends on what you want. Some people also believe that, well, I may not be, but when I go for the interview, maybe my demeanor, the way I present myself, they will like me. Even if not for this role, they will give me another role.
Okay.
So it's a game of chance.
Okay.
But I would say, go for the right position that has been advertised, so that you are not malhandled.
Because people do that, because sometimes we have an understanding that employers also look out for soft skills. They may not necessarily be looking at your education. Maybe you have done other things that relates to the job that is being advertised. So somebody will do that because maybe they have the soft skill, or they've done something else that relates to the job that was advertised. My question is, can HRs look past hard CV certificates and look at soft skills and base that and employ someone?
Okay, so soft skills are very important, but it depends on the role. Let's say you are advertised or a role for, let's say, a customer service person.
Okay.
Soft skills are so important there. The person must be a good communicator, must have good interpersonal skills, must be adaptable, tolerant, because people come and they'll push you, So the soft skills are very important.
Okay.
But let's take an engineering role, maybe a machine servicing officer. You don't need the soft skills. You go and cut your fingers or something. So you have to know the role. It's not just any role at all that you say because I'm good at talking. So they may not need that for that position. Okay. So you have to be particular about what role is being advertised. What do they need? Okay. This customer service or a marketer or something. Yeah, I have it. So let me apply for it. I may not have the qualification. You see that a lot of marketers, sometimes they are even engineers. They are whatever. They have medical backgrounds, etc.
Yeah.
But because they have these soft skills, you find them being enrolled for such roles. Yes.
Okay. Yes. Now, I've been to interviews and I see the way people dress the interviews. I want you to help us understand, when you're going for an interview, is there like some interviews they state come casual, I mean some to strictly official, but generally if you are not asked to be specific in your outfit, how would you advise that one dresses to an interview? Because I see people dress to interviews like they are going to parties. Like literally they wear very short dresses. I don't know, maybe they think it's an office. Some are not I don't know the word.
They don't look formal.
Yes, they don't look formal. Yes. So how should one look to an interview when they are going for an interview?
I mean, for an interview, generally you must look smart.
Okay.
Then you go specific. What kind of organization is it? And that's very important. You cannot be going for an interview for a banking role and go wearing party dresses. I mean, you'll be walked out.
Okay.
I remember once there's this bank we're recruiting for, and they have their dress code. So usually before you send the candidates, you even tell them how to dress. And we were there and we had a call. He said, "Did you tell them this person came in this outfit?" And this lady actually came to our office in that outfit. So when she did, I told her, as you're going to the bank, don't wear something like this.
Yeah.
Interestingly, the very thing I told her,
that's what
she did. So when she entered the interview room, I mean, immediately she was sacked.
Oh, yeah. Did they even allow her?
No. As they saw her, they called us. How did you give so we're all very surprised that this was the very thing we told her not to do. But I'm sure she thought she could go and blaze them with her whatever. So it depends on the organization. Okay. And what role you are going to play there.
Okay.
But generally, because you may not know what they are looking for, it's better to look formal. Okay. Smart casuals are good. Okay. But just look formal, not too colorful, and then when you are taken in, then you can decide to do what you think best fits the role.
Also, when we look at job descriptions that HRs put out there, it's like they're asking you to do 1,000 things. So you're playing the role of a cameraman, you're playing the role of a editor, front desk assistant, all under administrative, maybe administrator or something. So I want to know, why is it that sometimes the roles or the job description is like you have put 3 roles into one, and you want to employ one person to do that, and also the remuneration is not
for 3.
It's just they divided the salary and then I give you a very small salary, but then the job I believe that is something that like why do you put it that, or why do HRs do that?
Gone were the days where you recruit, let's say, 10 people. You go to a small organization, you see 10 people. But over the years, we realized that, look, you don't need 10 people to do the work. People go and you find them using it 1/3 of the time reading newspapers, being on their phones, etc.
Yeah.
So you have to make the job description quite, so that the person will not have a breather. That's cost saving on the part of the organization. Now everybody wants to save cost. That's why these AIs and things are being introduced into the system, so that the human element will be removed.
Okay.
And we need the human element too. So now we are trying to make sure that when you come, maximize your time. Don't have too much free time to do. Your break time should be your break time. We the same people here, will go outside and we'll do back to back. Even when it's time for us to go for break, we don't even want to we want to use that break time to do an extra hour. That means we can do it. So that is it. So don't be, sometimes the job description looks lengthy, but practicality is not everything that you do on the same day. So as and when you see, sometimes they even write, you may be assigned to a job as and when required. So
okay. Would you encourage someone that is just starting out to let's say he's not the person is not getting a job to do, okay, and then he has finally gotten one, but when he looks at the salary, it's like it's not going to be anything.
It's not encouraging.
Yes, but then the company also encourages growth. When you work in there, you easily move up, or your role changes, and then you can be paid better. For somebody who is just starting, and somebody who has like engineering, and he wants to get an engineer job, like no matter what. So even if he gets an opportunity to be maybe help in the IT department, but he may not, they're actually giving him the job, but he's working in like maybe IT department, and he may not necessarily be doing what exactly he learned in school, and the salary too is not good. What would you advise the person to take the job and work his way up?
Oh yes, if the person is doing nothing, it's good to do that. It will add to your CV. And you may not know, in future, maybe eventually when you get the kind of job you are looking for, sometimes there are certain rules that become intertwined. So you think you're an engineer, but along the line, they need somebody, an engineer who has an IT experience. And then you fall back on that, your back experience. And that role, it becomes yours, So sometimes we shouldn't look just at the money, because sometimes you're like, no, I'm an engineer, I must earn so much. So because of that, I'm not taking it. No, but at the entry level, I'll tell you, don't look at the amount involved. Rather, look at the experience that you get into the role, and after the recruitment, your experience will lead you to the top.
Okay. Okay. What I've seen is these days people do not actually want to start small. Okay. So he will be looking for jobs for like 2 years, 3 years. And maybe he did business administration. And maybe you got a school that says come and teach business. Okay. And the person doesn't want to actually teach the business because he feels that that is not what he learned. He must sit in an office, maybe with an AC and all that, and be calling people and be organizing meetings. So I want to know, would you encourage that he should start small, irrespective of what you have actually learned in school? Okay, because there's no job, so should he just take any job and start from there? Or you should wait till you get the one that your heart desires?
No, I would say you take any job. But of course, it must be a good job. It must be something that is legal.
Okay.
Take those jobs, start it, and don't close it. Don't say because I'm working, so that is it. But whilst you are there, be looking out for what you are looking for.
Okay.
Because like you were discussing, you talked about having an aim,
Yes.
having a goal,
Yes.
So with that, it will push you to get to where you really want to be. Yeah.
When you finally land that job in the interview, they give you the good news. Sometimes they can give you the good news there, and then, or even when they call you, they give you the good news. What are some of the questions that you should ask? Maybe they sent you your the letter, but you notice that maybe they didn't state some things like maybe your pension,
Like
yes, medical
tax.
Yes.
No.
Those questions, should you ask them during the interview or after you have received your appointment letter and you are going through the process?
No, you can't ask during the interview because you have not even received the appointment letter. So you don't know but you can ask. Well, okay, sometimes they'll say, do you have any questions for us?
Yes.
So you say, so what packages do you have available? Or should I be taking? What am I going to get? It just tells something. Okay. Even that question alone tells us something.
Okay.
Which many people would rather, when you say, is there any question? You have come, we've asked you 1,000 questions. And then we ask you, is there any question? Then you say no. Immediately it tells this person doesn't have initiative.
Oh.
It just strikes the wrong chord. So every time, once you have the opportunity, or even maybe a question you were asked and you couldn't answer. So when they ask you, is there any question? You say, yes, you asked me this. I don't have any clue. Okay. Can you tell me what the answer is?
Okay.
That alone tells us something. So, but knowing your SSNIT and things, once you get your appointment letter, it should be, if it's not stated, please ask.
Okay.
Because the moment you start working, that means you have accepted the condition that is available.
Yes.
And once you start and you didn't ask, don't expect anything later.
Yes.
So anything that is on your mind, ask before
be clear about it
before you put your pen and paper and sign anything. Yeah.
Okay. But when you ask a candidate that, why should we give you this job? That kind of question, or tell me about yourself. What things are you looking out for? What are there specific things that you want a person to say?
No, such questions are actually to relax you. Usually when people go for interviews, they are tensed. You see some, you can tell from their postures, their hands, how they hold, and all those things. So we ask those things just for them to come tell us about. So as you keep talking, you find yourself relaxing over the line, and things. But if we ask, why should we? Then that one you must convince us why we should choose you over Kojo.
Yes.
So that's where your soft skills must also come out to tell us what you have, what you think you can do, or what you have done, etc. And therefore we should take you on.
That means before you even decide to apply for a job, or you actually get to go to an interview, there's a whole lot of preparation that you need to do. From couching your CV in the correct way, to your dressing, to how you answer your questions, even after getting the job, the important things that are needed for you to get to help you in how you do your job. Also, your job description and all other things are very important for the person.
Yes.
Also, know that the job that you're applying for, is it something that you can do? Be truthful about your skills, be truthful about maybe your experiences to the hiring manager that you are going to meet. I want to know, are there any other things that we should also add up to make our job search complete and very fruitful?
I would say your CV is you. Okay, so when you come, whatever you have there, once it's you should be able to tell us about yourselves without looking into your CV.
Okay.
So would say memorize your CV. Know it. Sometimes you'll be surprised. You ask somebody his date of birth, and the year that he's telling you is different from what is on the document. You know. And I didn't write it for you. You wrote it. So immediately, just because the person is nervous, so we use all the tricks to calm them down. But still, because the person is trying to lie some way, that information, where you least expect, that's where it will spring up from. So just be yourself, be you, and say what it is. Okay. Don't try to be too elaborate or too dramatic or, trying to impress. No, it doesn't work.
We still need to come back and talk about other issues after you have finally gotten into the organization, things that you have to do, and you don't have ethics. Yes, they are very they are very important things as well. It's not just about getting the job. Afterwards, to what's next. Yeah. So we'll have another discussion on that. But I really want to thank you for joining us today. I know that we have learned a lot. For me, the civic culture, because of my experience with the civic culture, I would wish that it is something that it is done in schools, even maybe SHS. Because some people after SHS, they may not further, but they may also look for jobs that may require them to use CVs and all that. You were saying that we can search on Google and other things. But I also believe that maybe HR organization can organize this
training sessions
on how to do.
But interestingly, our time, I think we used to learn how to write these things in school.
In school,
yeah, basic. I don't know. Maybe our time was different.
Okay. Thank you very much for joining us on this episode.
Thank you too.
Don't forget. I always say we are learning to have big changes in our lives. So please don't forget to watch this episode on YouTube on the Big Changes podcast, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. You can also follow us on all our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. See you again in our next episode. Take care.